Welcome to Earth Empaths.
Okay. Hi, Claudia. How are you today?
Hi, I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. Well, we were planning on recording something last week, and then we thought about doing something a few days ago. And it seems like there's a bit of a collision course of private lives, the current paradigm reality, and the emergent and clashing realities of perception that's going on in our world and our universe.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Expect the unexpected to happen.
Exactly. And how are we going to navigate that? And I guess that's really what I want to talk to. I'm going through a bit of my own inner turmoil at the moment.
hmm
Feeling through a lot of things. Probably want to talk a little bit about today what the video that went so viral, that rocks are silicone trees, is
Right.
into our perception, and what our takes on that. And this is where I'm coming from, anyways, Claudia, is that really what we're looking at is how our reality is created by our perception and projection of it back onto the screen of reality. That's kind of the nutshell of it.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
and yet, when I look at it that way, the questions that always keep emerging are, well, okay, what is it really that we are immersed in, and why, and what is the purpose of all of this? So, just for the any listeners that might be listening, if you haven't seen the video, "Rocks Are Silicon Trees," it is impactful. It has impacted a lot of people. I mean, it's gone very viral. Basic tenet of it is a Russian gentleman, started looking around at the world. He presents us the whole idea that reality is a set of perceptions that we've been entrained to see life in a certain way. I can't disagree with that at all. And when he started looking through everything and looking at it, he started looking at all these mesas, these cut off mesas in the world that look like stumps of trees, and very real that they do. And he's made some analysis akin to that there were once giant forests growing on our planet. We know there were giants, we know there were dinosaurs even, and that our planet has been, I like to use these words because they mean a lot, not just mind, not just a resource for some other beings, we don't even know who they are, but for eons of time, this planet has been harvested, both its natural resources and its inhabitants. That moves something in me, Claudia.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that totally. Um, what I'm not sure about is why did this video impact so many people? It's to me it looks like it's flat earth all over again.
hmm Yeah, it does. And then for me, it doesn't, because that's what I've been writing about. Because when you look at flat Earth, that feels like it's very contrived, right? It feels like, I mean, I look at it and I go, okay, well, on some level, the Earth is flat. There are planes of
Yeah,
existence.
yeah, I hear you there. It does feel contrived, and yet there are quite there are quite a few things that the flat earthers say that make perfect sense.
From one perspective, right? See, that's where we go
Yeah.
back to perception,
Yes.
perspectives and perception, how we, the viewer, perceive reality is a definite influence how we project reality back into the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where flat earth doesn't go far enough for me, is that it doesn't talk about the hologram so much. Now, I think Santos Bonacci tried to do a whole thing, but he put it in terminology of what I think of as matrix makers, different ancient encoding systems from the Kabbalah on down. None of
Mm-hmm.
that, I don't, when I say that, I don't say that these things don't have truth in them. Of course they're true at one
Oh,
level.
yeah, no doubt. I mean, everything, including flat Earth, including the silicon giant trees.
Right. So what impacted me though with the silicon giant trees is that it opened up a field of perception I hadn't had. Now, flat Earth I've been looking at not in the terms that they put it out there in the videos, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
in the Eric Dubai and not in the Mark Sargent world. It was more in an inner perceptual data that I've been carrying around with me since the 90s, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is like a plane of existence, that we're on planes of existence, and those are the planes, or if you can see them as disks of information encoding from DNA, plant life, everything that expands into the hologram. So in my mind, both flat earth view, not in the physical reality that they talk about it, but a plane along with a holographic sphere of
Yes,
expansion
exactly.
works fine. I don't have, but so I'm not going to get into this argument of right or wrong. And with the silicon trees, I have no inclination whatsoever, myself, this is very personal, to go into the scientific data of it. All
Mm-hmm.
that happened to me was viewing that video opened up a perceptual database I did not have before in me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
I kind of clicked away eventually. I did watch nearly all of it,
mm-hmm,
but then I asked myself, what difference does it make to me?
mm-hmm,
And it's again, it's the same way I reacted to, or after watching a few flat Earth videos.
uh-huh,
I was thinking, what difference does it make to me personally whether the Earth is round or flat, is a globe, a ball, an egg, whatever? How is how is that knowledge going to impact my life?
mm-hmm,
And my conclusion was, it isn't.
mm-hmm,
It makes no difference in my own personal life, in my hope to grow spiritually, whether the Earth is flat or not.
mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
in the same way, it makes no difference whether mesas are, silicon tree stumps.
Mm-hmm. And no, I totally understand that. I really do. And that's a very valid point of view. And it doesn't. For me, the only difference that either of those or the Mandela effect or whatever, what's pricking away at me is perception. Human potential of perception, imagination.
Yeah.
That's the piece that I want to bring forward here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can actually more easily look out at these mesas. And I've been driving past them for many, many years here where I live in Mexico. Every time I look at them, I go, that's not natural. What makes something so perfectly flat at the top? And I've been, and I never even went further than that. So I can see that there is a world that existed. And I can see
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
right? And we all can. And the movie Avatar, of course, brings that very vividly
Yeah.
to our minds, where we were living in this extraordinary, very light world. And that's why I even like the idea of silicon, because when I think of silicon as the foundation or the matrix holder, we're looking at a carbon reality right now in our world. I can
Mm-hmm.
see how silicon can hold, no, I don't want to say more information, but it has a more fluid neural connectivity, and it's
Yeah.
lighter as a
Yeah.
material. So all of those things make sense to me. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not any of those things. And so, you and I have had conversations and we've done sessions where we've seen the world where it actually vibrates in a different color spectrum.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's what this particular video, I did, the way he presented it and the stupid scientists and all of that, that was all done to catch attention. I was
Mm-hmm.
more at a response in me, which again, and we've all talked about this, it brought me into some very deep trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the loss of a life, or loss of at the hands of something that is a mechanism or mechanical and destructive. And if you
Yeah.
think about what it would take, either laser technology, machinery, uh, and I have seen in my mind's vision, and we have talked about this in a few sessions where I keep bringing up, I keep seeing these giant machines. Where are these
Mm-hmm.
giant machines come from? Well, if you
Mm-hmm.
replicate down to our world right now, we have these huge mining operations all over the planet.
Exactly. And as above, so below. So
Exactly. So doesn't really take that much to go in the imagination to a giant world in a
no,
different
not at all.
sort of density, and to think, but see, what happened was, it's like, how long has this been going on here? I mean, we're talking millions of years now
Mm-hmm.
of the earth recovering, life forms taking form, and then something comes in through us, and don't leave us out of that picture, that rapes, pillages, takes all the resources, doesn't replenish, doesn't hold life sacred. And that's where I really, really, no matter where I turn inside my consciousness, no matter what somebody else's view or take on it that's the big looming question I have.
Yes, especially if if we look at the current world paradigm, where pretty much everything is anti-life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
It
mean,
it really, it literally begs the question: what are we heading into? Are we going to heading? Are we going to head into another complete extinction event?
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And actually, I don't know if you know, today a lot of the prognosticians that really work with fear are saying today was supposed to be some big event.
Yeah, I came across that, and that, as with any prophecies, a lot of them don't come true,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
especially when they are widely shared beforehand. Because even, if the human collective does so on a completely unconscious level, no, I don't want another disaster. No, I don't want another war. And that has quite a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. It does. See, that is so key. And even to the extent of not even vocalized, but when a lot of times when we're doing our session work, or other people that I talk to that do similar type of work, those
Mm-hmm.
that have been able to
Yeah.
at least penetrate past the matrix reality into some of the deeper levels,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes apparent that the observer, the balance centered observer self that we all are, because that's where we connect with source, when it moves into a field of that nature, um, whether it's a prognosis, somebody's doing a prognosis or lining up a whole bunch of things in the astrology, and the signs are all pointing into one thing. When there's an observer, more than one, especially three would be the first triangulation in that. And then
Mm-hmm.
there are other nodes of different people doing this all across the planet now. We all pretty much know we're connected without knowing each other. It does have a change. It does change the outcome.
Yes, absolutely. And all it takes to start is one single thought.
Mm-hmm.
Once that thought is there, it enters the morphogenic field.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody who is very sensitive can pick it up when there is just that one thought. And from there on, it has that ripple effect, because then at first the very sensitive people pick it up, and then it becomes a stronger part of the field,
Mm-hmm.
and then more and more people pick it up.
Mm-hmm. That is so vital. And this is vital for several reasons. One is you are what you're projecting through your thoughts, you're
Mhm.
responsible for, number one.
Exactly.
And this is the key to soul sovereignty is to accept that responsibility. And we've talked about radical responsibility and 100% responsibility and all of those terminologies. It's and this to me is one of those absolute truths,
Yes, I agree.
right? And once we don't let me say right too many times, okay? One of my bad speech habits. Um, Yet that responsibility is in reflection to how aware you are. So
It is, yes.
so if you're living life on the flat plane of existence, let's just call it that. It's really we're in a 3D world because we're seeing moving figures and all of that. But a lot of people still are thinking in the 2D fashion, right and wrong,
Oh, yeah.
and they can only project in a linear thought pattern.
Which makes it pretty flat, as in, the meaning of not having much substance.
Exactly. Well, that's a beautiful way to put it. So the more expanded or the more depth that you have in your perceptual field, the more 3D you really are. And then you start moving into the fourth and fifth dimensionals. And that's when I feel like that's when we start to get out of the right wrong paradigms and we start to get into dimensional thinking, dimensional viewing, and dimensional being. And
Yeah.
that substance, and at that point, the way you want to call it, within your own consciousness, you realize how absolutely connected you are to everything else. And that's going back to what you said. One thought
Hmm. It's
is
all
a
it takes. I mean,
is all
that's,
it takes. And then when a few of us come together, and we actually move out of thought in some way. Um,
yes, but it's whatever you want to call it, it still takes place, first of all, in the mental plane.
right. So this is
Plane. That word again.
it's okay. I think we need to try to find words to express this.
Hmm.
Um, so one could say thought or spark. When we get into the creation planes now, at that level of creation, which one could say is imaginary, one could say it's imagination, one could say it's creative,
Hmm.
illumination, it takes place there. You're the receiver. And so when that hits that thought plane or that thinking mind, proceeding from that then puts it into action, into the manifestation. Does that make sense at all? I'm
Oh,
following
yeah.
some. Mhm. And so if we're having our thoughts generated by television, AI, music, fear, we're allowing those thought patterns or thought forms to be regenerated through us.
Hmm.
Therefore, it takes us to step out of that, unplug from that, enough of our own energy back, claim ourselves. We have to reclaim our sovereignty so that we can allow this incredible intelligence that is life promoting, life giving, infinite, abundant, knows no such thing as scarcity to manifest through us in our thoughts, our words, and our deeds.
Yeah, you do have to sort of own every single thought you ever think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the hardest, because sure, it starts with looking back. I have to say, it starts with the simple stuff like, you know, questioning vaccination or the education system or something like that. But then as you remove each layer, you find more layers and they are deeper and deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
And
And more
the
subtle.
programming is so vast.
Mhm.
It's incredible. You really got to hand it to them. They are freaking clever.
Mhm. Definitely. and at each level, as we're penetrating through them, one can call it depth perception. At the same time, it is also, I'm going to use a word that I rarely use, ascension perception. And by that I mean that the perceptual data that you are accessing is extremely deep, and with that also is what one could call the upward or the movement. I have to use these words to describe something. For me, the biggest co-opting or psyop with the word ascension is that it leaves out descending. It leaves out the other play. It divides us out. It says you have ascension.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everything coming from the system is inverted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another challenge for every individual on this planet is, to actually realize it and then turn it around until we see it for what it is rather than accepting what is presented.
Mm-hmm. So the willingness to invert your own perceptions, the willingness to not buy into somebody else's hyperbole or own programming, because again, we're talking about programs here, all the programs that are running on our planet. It is such a fine line, if one could say that, to thread this needle right now, because they are very tricky. I get that.
Yeah.
They've penetrated very deep into the substrata of our existence here. And so it becomes what you were saying earlier, just a few minutes ago, was how subtle it is.
Oh yeah, I mean, more subtle than anything else I've ever come across.
Mm-hmm. So in another way is like veils within veils within veils.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we think that we've, and this may be the ultimate place, is that this is a never ending aspect of our soul growth right now. Or we hit some level where everything, it's like that puzzle that you put together and all the pieces at first, they just don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Or getting closer to a place where, when that one piece, if you've done jigsaw puzzles, you put that one piece on the board finally, and then the whole picture starts to develop from there.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that's where we are. And it doesn't come through one person. I think this is something that many people that are just waking up, they want to find somebody to tell them what's going on.
And that isn't going to happen.
No, there is no one somebody. This is really a time of us being the avatars. And I mean the greater collective collaborative us. There is no single avatar that's going to move this particular age into the next whatever. I don't know what to call it. Next what would you call it, Claudia? Do you have any clues in yourself right now of what you feel we're moving into or out of?
Era of spiritual development.
Right. So something non-experienced, something we haven't experienced before, or do we?
Or something we don't yet remember.
Well, both.
Because if you go by the natural law of everything being in motion and everything having rhythm, it means everything goes down, up, down, up. And my suspicion is that the collective on Earth, has pretty much reached rock bottom. So, as the saying goes, the only way is up.
So this is actually an interesting point, and we've talked about it before, that the death cult, those that seek destruction, whatever it is, has a finite ability to destroy.
Yeah, because eventually they destroy themselves.
Exactly. A parasite will die when the host dies. So at that point, there is only one direction, and that is back up. Now, as human consciousness in this day and age, in this current now moment, has access to not only the internet and the intellectual planes and the researchers who have done a fabulous job. I don't take away anything from those that have been digging, digging, digging.
Mm-hmm.
We also have, and this is what you and I speak about, is allowing or encouraging others to open their own inner data, because we are the final mystery here, each of us
Oh,
individually.
absolutely. No doubt about that.
So one of the things that we're so used to in the course world of events, right? The big dramas, the big stage plays that keeps going on, the things that
Mm-hmm.
keep us attached emotionally, is that when you can unplug from that, naturally, you start to receive other data. So this isn't like becoming a shaman. This isn't some, initiation ritual that we.
No, it's not. It's simply a consequence of your own spiritual growing.
Mhm. And unplugging from a false, we can call it a matrix belief system. Perhaps it was necessary, but as you as consciousness unplug from it, the coarseness of it, you get into the more subtle feelings. And then I always want to say to people, trust your own instincts. They're always there.
Mm-hmm.
All of us have them. All of us do. And if you're really looking and you really want to understand and you really want to grow spiritually, the best place to listen is yourself.
Yeah. Don't go outside. Don't go without for your answers.
Mm-hmm.
You can go there in order to find the right direction, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, you have all knowledge within.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be willing to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another challenge, of course, in this reality.
Mm-hmm. Especially flooded with information we are right now. And
Yes.
I was surfing the internet, and when I'm in a very fluid state, it is like hitting on resonant notes. I'll find people or things that will
Yeah,
resonate, and they amplify my field. Uh,
exactly.
and that's where I go. And it's not even like I take all that information in verbatim as it comes from someone else, as is the case with rocks or silicon trees. I didn't take in his information like I had to go prove it or disprove it. I just
Hmm.
allowed it to move through me,
Yeah.
inform me, and where it hit me. And those are the places in me that I need to look at.
Hmm.
And I don't have that. I can't say that's the right thing for anybody else.
No, everyone has to, figure that out, what the right
Hmm.
direction is for them.
Hmm. And I guess I go back to, and I don't know this person that put out that video. I don't know what's going to come subsequent to it. But that's why with the flat earth, I get really tired of it because it's like hammering it into you. The same information over and over and over again.
Yes, and then there, we have I've noticed, especially with the flat Earth theory, is a lot of people are very arrogant about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, oh, if you don't know that Earth is not a globe, you're plain stupid.
Exactly.
Why, thank you.
Right. And so what does that say? Then they're using NASA and all this. Well, they're actually discarding in a very arrogant way other beings on the planet who have a whole perceptual database that perhaps isn't really locked into NASA or schooling,
Yeah.
have penetrated their own way, have had their own journeys, have unplugged enough so that they see things differently. And so, that's why I find it as such a psyop at its base level, because it does not empower people. It just simply doesn't.
No, and it's basically, the very same behavior that the so-called experts display day in, day out, whether they
Mhm.
are medical doctors or spacecraft engineers. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It's exactly the same routine.
Mhm. So, in keeping with, we have a listening audience right now, and one of the things that I'm becoming also tuned into is that our group, let's just say our group, and I mean all the groups that are reaching for truth, expressing their truth, um, giving out information freely, we're still talking to ourselves in a lot of ways. Right. Right. I mean, we are. I mean, we all sit there
Yeah, yeah,
like
I
the
know what
naughty
you
dog,
mean.
we nod our heads and go, yes, 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 yes. Yeah, we get it because we're tapped into a intelligence field or wave or galactic information, source information, however you want to describe it. We're tapped in enough to it that we're getting that information.
Mhm.
I'm going, okay, well, how do we step out of that and reach others? And it's like pushing our own bubbles, like just like moving it out a little bit. And so what I would say to anybody that might find us for the first time or just hasn't heard this type of expression before is like tune into how the world interacts with you, because if you're still looking to other for an authority, I mean, it's so easy to see that, like you said, with doctors, with experts, with lawyers, with all of these people. They do not give you information. They really don't. They hold on
Yeah,
to that information as currency. You have to buy this information from me. You have to buy that I know more than you do.
and yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And you can see that repeated in media and personalities and gurus and many, many things. It's a pattern. And then you have to ask yourself, why am I giving my authority, my divine sovereign authority, to some other person? And I just had
Mhm.
just, I'm going to keep it really simple, right down to, I had an encounter with a doctor the other day. My mother had an infection on her leg. We needed to get somebody to prescribe something because it wasn't going away. The woman's like, takes her blood pressure. I go, oh, what's her blood pressure? It's good. I go, what is her blood pressure? Oh, it's fine. I go, no, what are the numbers of her blood pressure? You see, but when we give away our authority, that person's also doing our bidding because they aren't giving us information.
Yeah.
What type of bacterial infection do you think she has? Oh, it'll go away with this cream. No, excuse me. Do you think there's a need to take a culture? You become an educated questioner also.
Yes.
And this is something that I guess it's one of my personal frustrations is I see how easily people succumb to outside authority. Every all.
Yeah, because we are bombarded with outside authority.
Mhm. And yeah, so I just try to point out these patterns, and they go all across the board. The person that's out there in the media world right now telling you the way it is,
Mhm.
the person that out there says, I have some keys and I'm going to sell them to you. All of these things have and it doesn't mean there's not valuable information. I'm not like putting down people in that way. It's just that the person, has to be the determined one. Who am I listening to? What am I buying into? And what am I paying for?
Yes, that's the huge thing. I mean, don't buy everything you're told.
Hmm. And it seems like the more pompous an authority or an expert becomes, I mean, there are a great amount of people that's where they're at, isn't it? We need to have somebody
Sadly.
in a suit and a wig, a wig. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. I'm thinking of these judges in black robes or something, or these priests or whatever. It's just like, oh, take a deep breath. I just hope, putting this out here and actually kind of laughing about it. May it change something out there somewhere in somebody. They might wake up a little bit, see the farce that it really has become. So, anyways, Claudia, I mean, I'm sorry I went off on
Yeah, I mean,
a tangent there.
do keep in mind that somebody in an expensive suit does not necessarily know any more than you do.
No, quite often they're the biggest idiot around.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, I feel like we're on the verge of something. We're always on the verge of something, I suppose, at some level. Um, a lot of people have been talking about cataclysms, Nibiru again, big earth upheavals. How do you personally view that?
Um, I'm. I don't have a definite opinion. There are possibilities, such as we wake up one morning and the world will be a different place. That is possible,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow I doubt that will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because from what I can tell, everything has to do with, I don't even like to use that word, but I can't think of anything else, consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
which is directly um, in proportion with ethics. And uh, when I look around me, and I'm not talking about looking at the media, I'm, going to town and just be a little bit observant how people behave. Um, I can't see any drastic overnight change
And
because most people are still inconsiderate, blind, and generally just interested in what's right in front of them, with no regard to others around them.
mm-hmm.
So I can't see any change happening suddenly. Um, as much as I dislike anything to do with savior memes, I don't think humanity at the moment is in a place where it can save itself. I just can't see that.
Mm-hmm. It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, and I doubt. I mean, if you look at the so-called powers that be, or rather their puppet masters, um, if you look at that from a different perspective, for example, say they don't want to destroy us, they simply throw us all these things into the way in order for us to grow. They hand us all these tools.
mm-hmm.
These beings must be face palming nonstop at humanity in general.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably have decided that it's not worth creating another 9/11 event because it's not going to change people. So why bother?
Mm-hmm. Not necessary. And yet they do measure conscious awareness on let's say a smaller group. If we talk about the elite structure that's been the current controllers on the planet, they represent all the way down through, from those at the very top to the puppets, maybe 1% of humanity, to those that do the bidding, the bureaucrats, the ones at the upper echelons of the church of academia, all of those, the very few. And yet I could probably at this point speculate that there's another 1% of, if not more, of humans on the planet that are in, or let's say beings on the planet that are in a human form right now, who have established in themselves. It's not just like I'm waking up, have established in themselves a rooted place in truth.
Yes.
And perhaps that is where the play really is taking place. And the mass of humanity, which are those that are more concerned with their survival, their being accepted in their social group, all of the other things that I was for a long time in my life. So I don't really even put that down. Those are the ones that are at play here because their consciousness, in my mind anyways, will grow to the greatest magnetic, attractive center. Right?
Well, yes, because they're all followers.
Exactly. So, when you leave that out, and so what we're really playing out here in this, multidimensional game, if you want to call it that, of a chessboard of consciousness is a rising consciousness And then there's the equal response of the negative consciousness, which we've already defined as finite.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps in that is the play of what could possibly change. And then we put into it the Earth Mother herself, her
Yeah.
consciousness, in touch with all the other planetary bodies who are also consciousness, and the
Mm-hmm.
sun. And all of that is I mean, this is fascinating when one starts
Oh,
to
it is.
look at it from that perspective. And that's probably the most important place that we can, I mean, we are literally formed of stardust. We are all of this. We are the cosmos ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how a mimicker or a puppet master can't really do anything with that at that level. So I don't know how it's going to play out. I mean, you know, we're like fleas on this Earth planet.
Yes.
We're like fleas. I mean, if she's a responsive mother, she's a loving mother, she's abundant, she responds to us in consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it is up to us. It is up to us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she holds no judgment.
Mm-mm. No, and if this isn't going to work out, I mean, we will be shaken off and we will go through whatever next, you know, manifestation that the Earth goes through, along with the solar system and along with the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
So at that level, it isn't. I speak so often because I feel so many, Claudia, they're like walking a line right now. They're in an emergent field
Mm-hmm.
and helping navigate that.
Yes.
And that could be where the whole play comes together or falls apart.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And this is why you and I have these talks and why we share with others. Um, I'm, you know, every week for me, every day practically, but every week, I mean, my consciousness is shifting, my perception is shifting, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and this is something I find very beautiful in a lot of others. Is that
Yes.
we're
It's
not,
a constant motion.
mm-hmm. And so we're not stuck in, like, I may be really angry, and that's okay. I may outrage one day, and that's okay,
Uh-huh.
because that's what my internal compass guidance is instructing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not doubting it, and I'm not like censoring myself, and I'm not trying to be civilly polite. uh, so I'm just one voice, but I know my voice joins your voice and it joins other voices, and
Exactly.
I'm not in judgment of that. The only thing that I really try to be I don't try, I am critical of. I mean, critical of means that I, as consciousness, is critical of those others that are primary leaders in the consciousness field that are drawing people away from their own inner process
Mm-hmm.
for their own ego development. And I'm not talking about the higher aspects of self. I'm talking about their own egoic development.
Yeah.
And so I will continue to speak on that as I'm called to. But other than that, mostly what I would ever want to share with anybody is to, you know, help strip away and plug them from a false matrix and dive into the abundance of this. Well, Lily calls it like the organic timeline.
Yeah.
It's life promoting, it's life giving, it's beauty, it's truth. It's like every quality that mystics, you know, have really talked about
Mm-hmm.
throughout our existence here. It's in our poetry, it's in our artwork, it's in our song, it's in that aspect of us. Planting a seed. It's, yeah, how many actions, if you're in a consciousness is somewhat expanded, every act you take is an act of consciousness. Planting a seed.
Yes, absolutely. And make sure it's not an act of war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask, you know, going back to that we are responsible for all our thoughts. And people would ask this: when you find call it a warlike or competitive or agendic type thought come into your world or into your mind, how do you
Mm-hmm.
how do you and how would one handle that? How do you not how do you process it? Because it happens.
Okay. I can only speak for myself, of course. Um, at first, I check, well, when I become aware of it, and this is not all the time. I'm working on that, but it's a constant process.
Mhm.
But when I become aware of it, I first figure out whether this came from me or whether this thought came from an outside source.
Mhm. Such as describe outside. So I would really get down to the description of it. So when it's an
Well, it could be something I heard in passing,
Mhm.
you know, going past a pub in the evening, TV blaring, and I overhear it because I happen to be there walking by. It could be something I've read. Um, it could even be an implanted thought,
Mhm.
um, AI, demonic, whatever.
Mhm.
Then I can, if I know it's not from me, then I can, nowadays I can straight off dismiss it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's not me, forget it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I do. If it's my own thought, or if I come to the conclusion that it is, and I'm pretty sure that I'll probably get it wrong half the time, but if it's my own thought, or if I think it's my own thought, then I um, I try and find the reason why that why I suddenly had that thought.
Mhm.
And sometimes I don't find an answer, and at other times I can trace it back to some kind of event, no matter how minor, but something that was obviously occupying my subconscious,
Mhm.
and then I can let it go.
Mhm. So very important point there of I want to add just as and I'll say a little bit about my own process that when this becomes a natural activity, it becomes a
Mhm.
very fluid activity. At first, you really have to practice it. You have to
Oh yeah,
you have to practice awareness. You have to literally say, "Wait a minute, where is that thought coming from? Why am I having it? Uh,
yeah,
do I agree with it or not?" See, that's when you get to that place of awareness, when you become the observer of yourself, then you have that ability to disengage or engage, and that's where responsibility comes in. You need to be at that place. Um, and so I just wanted to say that, and yet at the very same time, it's like the really for me anyways it became when I finally got out of I was so immersed in electronic harassment and implanted thoughts and imagery for quite a long time in my life.
mhm,
And then I became very aware of it, and then it became very acute and very difficult to transit. But then I finally, something in my spiritual self said, wait a minute, I don't have to go into agreement with this. This does not have to be a part of my everyday life that I'm battling
yeah,
the implanted thoughts, these demonics, all of these things. And it started to change from that point forward. So now for me, foreign thoughts are pretty easy to detect.
mhm.
So they've gotten
It
more,
does become easier with time,
yeah, but
with
now
practice.
become more subtle. I was talking to you about that earlier.
Yes,
There's some subtle energy field around me, and I can't quite it's not coming in pictures, images, thoughts. It's coming in an energy wave. So I realize that at saying that I'm going to be going through a new process here of understanding and comprehension. Uh, and yet, when they come from our subconscious, is probably the most tricky to navigate because they
definitely.
grab hold of us at some pretty deep level, and that's what a lot of people call shadow work, or being able to dive into yourself, but everything has a root cause.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it's, I find nothing more liberating then knowing my dark side, because the better I know myself, the more powerful I am.
Exactly.
And it's not about power over anyone. It's only power over yourself, over your own actions. And that is where the true power lies.
Yeah, not where we've talked about this too, of not overloading any conversation with so much information. Perhaps just staying with this thought right now, Claudia, is a good place to end this particular conversation, and yet underlining it and really bringing home right now to ourselves that, one of the reasons and the biggest play that these dark, controlling, manipulative, you call them archons, call it the Borg mentality, whatever you want to call it, the reason it's gotten into us, it's made us afraid of our own shadow. And it is within the shadow where knowing yourself there. And so people that won't deal with their shadows because they're afraid of themselves. They really are. They're afraid of themselves, and they're afraid of their own power.
And I want to point out here, where there is light, there are shadows. It's inevitable.
Yes. So it is an invitation, and we do what we do. We are both fortunate in a way that we don't have to go to work every day, and we're not so locked into the matrix that we've freed up enough energy to be in conversation. There are so many people out there right now that are so willing to but perhaps function as guides, as holding a field open basically is the thing that I see the most, that we can be able to hold a field open for another person to have a reflective reality of themselves. So it's like clearing a field so that when somebody's sitting in that field and you're holding it for them, whether you're talking to them or you're just holding it, is that the reflection becomes clearer and clearer. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So we're not like therapists. We're not doing anything like that. But and I connect with you, and then you connect with many others, and I connect with many others. And for me, that is the primary. I want to say action, but doesn't quite cover it. Path. And of an expanded awareness that's happening right now. So there's another network, much more akin to nature and nature's networks of communication, communion, nonverbal even, that
like trees.
Yes, like trees, that I'm very aware of. I'm becoming more aware of, more in tune to. Simply, it's so simple. It's not mystical. It's not magical even. I mean, it's all been turned into like woo. It's just like we know. Like I can feel you some days so acutely. Like I just know what's going on in your world. And I don't make a lot out of it. I don't make a drama out of it. I don't feel like I have to fix anything. I'm just aware.
Exactly.
Or I'll become aware of somebody else that I know. And it's like my inner guidance says, just say hi to them today. And it's becoming that way more and more all the time. And it's not me and Claudia. It's not any guru out there this time. This is about all of us. And even as I'm talking right now, I'm just feeling I'm being flooded, really. So the usual thing like that is like, okay, that's enough, girl. Enjoy a little laughter with your friend here, and we can pop a cork and have a glass of wine. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
That was quite beautiful. And let's call it here. And this is, this is raw. This was not planned. This is just here. And we'll put it out as our offering today.
Yep.
I love you so much.
And I love you.